tonight, ain't drunk.
Irene, the weather girl. Irene, are you there?
It's cold, real cold. But your ass is going to be plenty hot when I give you a good hard butt whipping. Tongue. What do you think about that? Turns you on, doesn't it, you little maggot?
Yeah.
Irene, thank you for the weather forecast.
Shut up.
We hope to hear from you tomorrow. Give us some more weather.
Fight me, you loser.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey everybody, a couple of announcements before we start the show itself. A reminder that February 19th, I will be doing 91 Reasons live at the Improv on Melrose Avenue in beautiful, it's weird. It's people tell me Hollywood and some say Los Angeles. So it's in Hollylangeles or somewhere around Lost Wood. I have no idea. But I'll be there. The show starts at 6. Tickets are free. There's no cover. It's 18 and up. So come on down and watch me do 91 Reasons live. I'll be doing the Best of Don Berg live. And the gimmick is I'll be doing it uncensored. So I tend to get angry when I do those shows sometimes. It's not all fun memories. But I don't curse on the regular show because I like to keep it as a family show. But it'll be uncensored, and then I'll just go through the trouble of editing out all the curse words when it finally gets on the feed here for those of you that can't make it. But it will be a lot of fun. Live show. Me and Rachel will be there. We'll have a box of swag if you want a 91 Reasons door hanger or a cup or something. We have all that stuff. So we'll bring a lot of it down, and we'll have a great time for a full hour, 6 to 7 on February 19th. That's just a few days from now. So don't miss out on 91 Reasons live at the Improv. Check out our Facebook page or go and check out the Improv in Hollywood. It's on the calendar. My little logo is right there on the calendar, which is very cool. And a big thanks to podcast producer extraordinaire Sean Merrick for helping put this event together. Sean's a great guy who was instrumental in Chris Gore's Podcrash show, and now he works on his own show, and it's called Worst Collection Ever, I believe. But Sean's a good guy. He was able to put this together for me, and I couldn't be happier to do 91 Reasons live February 19th at the Improv on Melrose. It'll be a lot of fun, and it should be just completely bizarre, so who knows what will happen. I'll also be, it'll be all Berg material, so oh, God help me. All Berg material. In another unrelated story, big thanks to 91 Reasons supporter Elizabeth and CW, who are kind enough, they love cult movies like I do, and they were talking about a film that I actually never seen. And it's weird, too, because my friend Rob loaned me this movie one time, and I swear to God, you ever get a movie and you don't watch it? I don't know. I guess it's like, I get movies on disc for Christmas, Blu-ray, DVD, and I've got some that have been still in the plastic wrap since, I think, Christmas 2014. I just, things lead one way and this way, and trying to sit down to watch a movie sometimes is impossible. Sometimes you buy it, you get home and you watch it that night, so there's no rhyme or reason to it. But Rob lent me this movie, and I swear to God, I had it for over a year. And he finally said, "Can I have my movie back?" And I said, "Oh my God, I am so embarrassed. Of course you can have your movie back." But Elizabeth and CW sent it to me, a Blu-ray copy of Paul Williams' The Phantom of the Paradise. This is a Brian De Palma film from 1974. Having only seen it once, it's not like I can sit here and do a full hour-long episode on it because I don't know enough about it. But what a crazy, fantastic cult film. It's one of those movies where you can mention it to somebody, and if their eyes light up, this is somebody that you probably want to hang around with. If they go, I've never heard about that, then you go, great, let's watch it together. And if they go, oh, I saw that, that was terrible, maybe you want to reconsider hanging out with them. But Phantom of the Paradise is a retelling of the Phantom of the Opera done against the backdrop of 1970s rock and roll. So vinyl records, magnetic tape masters, and lots of cocaine and women and ambiguous sexuality, and you have the recipe for a really, really, like, the only word to use for it is that it's bitchin'. Like, it's a bitchin' movie. Winslow Leach writes great music, and it gets stolen by Paul Williams' sleazy record producer, and there's a love interest, and who gets to sing the music, and the Phantom will have his day when the Paradise Club tries to open using his music. Great costumes, great set, and the reason to watch it is Paul Williams' amazing, amazing music. Paul Williams is one of those guys that, if you're my age, you grew up seeing him on, like, the Mike Douglas Show and Johnny Carson, and he was in the last Planet of the Apes movie, and he just wrote such amazing pop lyrics. They're catchy, they get in your head, and they don't get out, but in a good way. And he's responsible for some of the most iconic songs of my generation. Now, I met Paul Williams one time. I was completely tongue-tied. I didn't quite know what to say. Like, what do you say to a guy who wrote, like, if I said, look, he wrote the Rainbow Connection, you'd go, well, you know what, that's enough. Oh my God, he wrote the Rainbow Connection. But Rainy Days and Mondays Always Get Me Down, We've Only Just Begun, the Love Boat theme, and then, like, that's just a little bit. And then you go, oh yeah, and he also wrote all of Bugsy Malone. You're like, this guy's a legend. And he was off the scene for a long time. He's done some interviews where he talks about what happened during those missing years. I urge you to seek out Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast, where he did a full hour and talked about where he was. He came back on the scene in a big way with a documentary called Paul Williams Is Not Dead, and wrote Get Lucky with Daft Punk, which is one of the best dance songs of the last decade. Paul Williams is unbelievably talented, and he shines so bright in the Phantom of the Paradise that I must have had a goofy smile on my face the entire time I was watching it. What a really, really cool flick. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It is well worth watching. You can see where movies like the Rocky Horror Picture Show and a lot of other films of the 70s kind of got their groove going. And if they were made completely independent, which Rocky Horror was because Richard O'Brien had the play already, you can see where a studio would have looked at a film like Rocky Horror, a script, and said, you know, we just finished Phantom of the Paradise. This one's in the same vein. So they're all sort of part of the same brotherhood of cult movies that really should be part of your collection if you love eclectic movies like I do. And my friend Gus and I were talking how we'd love to have a Phantom of the Paradise action figure. So I know there was a big, expensive one that came out not that long ago, but like a really small Star Wars size. So I may make a few of those because I do like to make custom figures in my all my free time. You know, I have so much free time to sit and do crafts, but sometimes when inspiration strikes, you can't fight it. You just have to go with it. So once again, thanks to Elizabeth and CW, big fans of the show, good friends of mine. We just did the Crossroads escape game with them in Anaheim, which was a lot of fun. We considered doing a show, but I'm not sure how you do a show about an escape room without giving the entire thing away. And since the game really has no repeatability, it would be reckless of me and irresponsible to give a review that gives away the whole thing, so we won't be doing that. Anywho, thanks for listening, and now we're going to get on with the episode itself.
Campus Radio
Senior year, big year for me. I finally got up the courage to go down to the college radio station and get myself on the air.
And my name is Howard Stern on the Howard Stern Experience. And if you love music, you'll love Deep Purple on TBU.
Irene, the weather girl. Irene, are you there?
It's cold, real cold. But your ass is going to be plenty hot when I give you a good hard butt whipping. Tongue. What do you think about that? Turns you on, doesn't it, you little maggot?
Yeah.
Irene, thank you for the weather forecast.
Shut up.
We hope to hear from you tomorrow. Give us some more weather.
Fight me, you loser.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey everybody, a couple of announcements before we start the show itself. A reminder that February 19th, I will be doing 91 Reasons live at the Improv on Melrose Avenue in beautiful, it's weird. It's people tell me Hollywood and some say Los Angeles. So it's in Hollylangeles or somewhere around Lost Wood. I have no idea. But I'll be there. The show starts at 6. Tickets are free. There's no cover. It's 18 and up. So come on down and watch me do 91 Reasons live. I'll be doing the Best of Don Berg live, and the gimmick is I'll be doing it uncensored. So I tend to get angry when I do those shows sometimes. It's not all fun memories, but I don't curse on the regular show because I like to keep it as a family show. But it'll be uncensored, and then I'll just go through the trouble of editing out all the curse words when it finally gets on the feed here for those of you that can't make it. But it will be a lot of fun, a live show. Me and Rachel will be there. We'll have a box of swag if you want a 91 Reasons door hanger or a cup or something. We have all that stuff. So we'll bring a lot of it down, and we'll have a great time for a full hour, 6 to 7 on February 19th. That's just a few days from now. So don't miss out on 91 Reasons live at the Improv. Check out our Facebook page or go and check out the Improv in Hollywood. It's on the calendar. My little logo is right there on the calendar, which is very cool. And a big thanks to podcast producer extraordinaire Sean Merrick for helping put this event together. Sean's a great guy who was instrumental in Chris Gore's Podcrash show, and now he works on his own show, and it's called Worst Collection Ever, I believe. But Sean's a good guy. He was able to put this together for me, and I couldn't be happier to do 91 Reasons live February 19th at the Improv on Melrose. It'll be a lot of fun, and it should be just completely bizarre, so who knows what will happen. I'll also be, it'll be all Berg material, so oh, God help me. All Berg material. In another unrelated story, big thanks to 91 Reasons supporter Elizabeth and CW, who are kind enough. They love cult movies like I do, and they were talking about a film that I actually never seen. And it's weird too because my friend Rob loaned me this movie one time, and I swear to God, you ever get a movie and you don't watch it. I don't know. I guess it's like, I get movies on disc for Christmas, Blu-ray. I'd already moved on. By the time 88 and 89 rolled around, I had moved into listening to K-Rock. Like a lot of the kids my age, we gravitated towards the alternative scene. And instead of listening to Rick Dees anymore, our god became Richard Blade. Now, Richard Blade's a great guy, but he was never the morning guy. Richard Blade was an afternoon guy. And I got to listen to, I listened to all of the K-Rock lineup of Richard Blade, Jed the Fish, Swedish Eagle, Tammy Heidi, there was some Sluggo. And they were what you put on, like, I worked at the mall. I worked at Spencer Gifts. So this is before corporate everything took over. And we used to listen to the radio all day. I know now, like when I was leaving Spencer's, they were slowly morphing into this weird corporate thing where they would play pre-recorded background music in the store that promoted only the one, because Universal bought Spencer's, and they would only play Universal artists and then Universal this and that. But for, when I worked there, you just put the radio on, and it gave the store local flavor, and you heard news and traffic and what was going on, and I think it made the store more accessible and less like I'm being sold to every second I'm in here. And it helped for us who worked there because we could listen to what we wanted. And when I worked there was a short window in the late 80s where this station, Pirate Radio, came on, and their big DJ was Scott Shannon. And Scott Shannon was, the patron saint of this new kind of radio. Now, we used to battle at the Spencer's for control of the radio between Pirate Radio and K-Rock. Now, K-Rock was the Smiths, The Cure, Dramarama, and Pirate Radio was Guns N' Roses, Nirvana, and Def Leppard. So, I could listen to both, but I preferred K-Rock. I was never a heavy metal guy. I never quite got the Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, all that. It wasn't for me. I was never angry at things when I was little. And now I know I'm being very stereotypical there, but I'm speaking in shorthand, if you know what I mean. But we used to battle for what was on the radio. Now, Scott Shannon actually hosted a top 40 countdown about 87. I can remember listening to a station out here out of Anaheim called KEZY. Now, KEZY only played Journey and Steve Winwood and Bruce Hornsby on the Range and Lou Gramm. And then Sunday nights they would do this top 40 with Scott Shannon and some ridiculous character voice named Mr. Leonard, Scott Shannon and Mr. Leonard. Like, I don't know what I'm listening to. But if you listen to the top 40 at that time, you heard mostly songs you wanted to hear, so it wasn't too bad. Because, I'm a fan of 80s music. I like the memories that music brings back to me. And those countdowns were the epitome. Like, I know that out here in California, there's a station out of the Inland Empire called Cola, and Cola still plays the Casey Kasem countdown from, every weekend they play another old countdown from some year gone by. I mean, the guy's dead, but it's fun because it's good memories and good music, and a lot of times, for some of those songs that did not stand the test of time, that were not only one-hit wonders, but one-time wonders, it's the only time they play music like that, Some songs go in and out of favor. Like, for some reason, the radio right now is playing, what's his name from the Beatles? George Harrison's I Got My Mind Set on You. I haven't heard that in forever. And now I've heard it like 10 times in the last few days. So it's interesting what gets, pulled out of the vault and dusted off to put back on the radio. But the morning is where, like, that's the huge audience, because everybody's in their car in Southern California. Everybody's listening to the radio. And back in 89, 90, 91, there weren't a lot of choices to listen to in the morning. A lot of them just did simple news, or Rick Dees did a combination of music and talk. Mostly music, with bits, interspersed in between. But it became harder and harder to find something to listen to in the morning. Because I was such a big K-Rock guy, it was easy just to tune into this new show called Kevin and Bean. And they were two guys who, they did jokes, they did bits, and then the music that they played, because I was getting older and my music tastes were changing, Kevin and Bean were playing music I wanted to hear. They were playing Morrissey, they were playing the Smiths, they were playing The Cure, they were playing Susie and the Banshees, Dramarama, and I listened to Kevin and Bean, and I was just starting to work at Blockbuster Video, and I'd never had a commute before. Like wasn't in the I worked close to home, like really close to home, and suddenly I got transferred. Like I was hired at the store in Bellflower, which was right around the corner from my house, but I got transferred almost immediately because an assistant manager position opened up in Hawaiian Gardens, which was, about 15, 20 minutes by car. Not too far, but far enough that, I had to have a working car. And I would listen to the radio on the way in. Like, I can't even begin to stress to you how poor I was. I drove a little tiny orange Honda Civic, like a little bubble car. It did not have a cassette player. It certainly didn't have a CD player. Give me a break. Like, if it had anything, it might have had a vinyl record player in the glove box. But you know what? Even if I'd had that, the glove box wouldn't have been big enough for it. All I had was a radio with those big chunky push buttons for the stations. Do you remember those? The kind where you'd set it to the station that you want and you pull it out and then push it back in, and that would set that station. So I would set it for KEZY, Kiss FM, and K-Rock. And those were my stations. And I would, motor off to work to Blockbuster Video, my little stupid stick shift Honda car, down the road listening to Kevin and Bean, with, guest appearances by the Poor Man. I was a big fan of the Poor Man. It's free, I'm the Poor Man. Jim Trent, the Poor Man. And radio, that's just what it became. And then one day it all changed. It all completely changed.
The way it's said properly is WNBC.
It's needless to say, but yet we'll say it, that as a science fiction nerd who listened to Mopey, Morrissey, and Smith's music, I didn't have a lot of dates. I had a weird on-again, off-again girlfriend relationship that went nowhere. And subsequently, even though I was 19, 20, like, I didn't go out on Saturday nights. If anything, I went to the movies. I usually went to the movies Friday night because I like to see things right away. Saturday night, there wasn't a lot to do. Because my dad was killed in a violent crime, I was given some money from the state of Tennessee. And when it came in, my mom let me buy a few things. She could see, like, I want to spend some money. I mean, who doesn't? So I bought a $500 Laserdisc player. This is 91, guys. So the minimum wage is $4 an hour. You could imagine what an expense a Laserdisc player was. Then you got to buy the discs. I had the nicest collection of Laserdiscs. Because at the time, like, you'd talk about scan lines and how clear it was and stereo sound and, cluck, cluck, this one's not only in mono. Like, I was such a weird movie snob. Like, oh yeah, sure, Jeff, you've changed a lot. Hey, stop arguing with yourself. But I would spend Saturday night just watching Laserdisc movies over and over again. I mean, you can tell, listen to this show, you know exactly what I was doing with my free time back in the day. But I discovered late Saturday night this television show. It was on Channel 13, but it came to be known as the Channel 9 show because it was on Channel 9 out of New York, WWOR, but it was KCOP here in Los Angeles. And it was this bizarre show called The Howard Stern Show. And Howard Stern was this leather jacket wearing, Joey Ramone looking, gawky, dorky looking guy with a deep voice. His sidekick was a black woman named Robin Quivers. And they sat there with a guy named Jackie the Joke Man and Stuttering John and Gary Baba Booey Delabate. And the show, the Channel 9 show, was this weird mishmash of comedy bits where Howard was in terrible makeup. Later, I would learn it was done by Ralph Cirilla. And he would interview people and I couldn't tell if this was a gag or not. Like, what the hell am I watching? It was so completely bizarre. He was Captain Kirk one week on the Planet of the Lesbians. He was with Gary Busey in men's head trauma club for men, and one time he was I think he was Bob Hope golfing with the Ramones. That was the first thing I ever saw, was this really bad green screen of him golfing. No, I take it back. It was Billy West golfing with the Ramones, but it was part of the Stern show. And when they would cut to Stern in his studded leather jacket and his sunglasses, I didn't know what to think. Now, the show kept me interested, obviously, because every 10 minutes they would parade pretty girls through in bikinis. And, for a guy on a Saturday night, that's all the entertainment you need on the TV. I wasn't looking to watch Sophie's Choice. But I was taken. It's weird. This is how, if you're a Stern fan, this is a typical arc of how you become a listener. Now, if you hate Stern, you probably didn't even listen to this episode. You just skipped right on by. And that's fine, because not everything that I like is for everybody. It's different strokes for different folks. I get that. But how Stern gets his audience is you tune in and there's a pretty girl. I'll never forget, one time it was this beautiful blonde in a bikini shilling for Snapple. And when Stern asked her what she listened to on the radio, she said the Smiths. And I just remember thinking, why can't I meet one of those? Oh my God, I'm sitting here completely alone, desperate to meet a woman, and he's got this girl going, I can't get a boyfriend because I listen to the Smiths. And I was like, oh my God. But the show was strange. He sold Snapple and Butter Buds and did caricatures. But here's the arc. Stern pulls you in with Talking Dirty. And the TV equivalent of that's even better because you get the visual too. Girls in Bikinis. Tribute to breasts. Girl on the Street. We're going to ask him sexual questions. And then you start watching the Stuttering John segments, and he's making fun of entertainment media by asking these celebrities the most embarrassing questions ever. The best one being, what are you famous for? You ask a famous person, what are you famous for? And they look like they're going to kill you. So you start watching, and once you move past the titillation of the pretty girls, you realize that when Stern has a celebrity guest on, he is the best interviewer in the business, because it's not a 10-minute fluff piece. It's not just mention the name of the movie 10 times. It's an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, in-depth conversation, and you learn stuff about celebrities you never knew before. And on the radio, here's what happens. I would watch this show. Then in the commercial breaks, it would play commercials for KLSX 97.1, classic rock all day. Howard Stern all morning, classic rock all day. And that's when I realized this guy's got a radio show. Like, there's more than, because I was just watching once a week on Saturday, because they primed the Southern California audience for Howard Stern by putting the TV show on and then putting him on the radio. Now, this had never been done before, this kind of long-distance syndication. Stern had syndicated from New York to Philadelphia and done really well. But when he asked about syndicating to Los Angeles, they were like, it'll never work. It'll never fly because you're not in tune with the Los Angeles audience, because they seem to think, the people who run radio, that if the DJ's not sitting there in a building where we can see him, where he's not mentioning the names of local high schools or streets, that we're not going to tune in. It's completely wrong. I didn't tune in to the Stern Show initially in the morning to have anything familiar. I tuned in because this guy was doing stuff on radio that was completely unbelievable at the time. It was so groundbreaking as to be mesmerizing. And there were times when I worked at Blockbuster that I would get to work. I would turn Stern on in the morning while I was shaving and getting ready, turn him on in the car, drive to work, and then sit in the car 20 minutes waiting for a commercial break because I couldn't tune out, because he had Joan Rivers on, because he had my hero Sam Kinison on, or Andrew Dice Clay, or George Carlin, or any of the amazing people, celebrities that you wanted to hear from. That was just, it was amazing. And then there were the stuff that was just Stern only. Like, I didn't know who Pat Cooper was, but on the Stern Show, he was a god. I didn't know who Billy West was, but on the Stern Show, I was in awe at the guy's talent. Now, Billy West would eventually go on to voice almost everybody on Futurama, and so many cartoon voices, from the M&M to the Honey Nut Cheerios Bee to, oh my gosh, you name it. And just those days sitting outside Blockbuster, knowing that I got to open the store, I got work to do, I've got 45 minutes of reports to do, but if I get out of the car, I'm going to miss a second of this radio, and I can't, was so different, because driving to work with Kevin and Bean, when you got to work, you just went to work. They weren't doing anything groundbreaking. They were entertaining, yes. I'll never deny that they were. They were definitely entertaining, but they weren't captivating the way Stern was. Stern would ask sexual questions. If he found out a certain celebrity had dated a famous model or actress, he wanted to know what it was like living with them, dating with them, sleeping with them. Stuff that, you know, Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, even Letterman, they weren't going to ask this stuff. Absolutely not. And yet, here was this guy on the radio delving so deep into the psyche and the history of these celebrities that it was just, again, it was so groundbreaking. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. Howard Stern took a lot of heat because when he showed up in L.A., the number one DJ was, it was either Rick Dees or not Kevin and Bean, but Mark and Brian. I think it was Mark and Brian at the time. Now, I never tuned into Mark and Brian. I have no concept of what that show was. When Stern showed up in L.A., he spent months railing against Mark and Brian about how terrible they were. And you know what? I never had the desire to like flip over and listen to what was going on. Like, how bad were they? I don't have that. I was too interested in what Stern was doing. And he really turned up the heat when he showed up in LA. The shows were some of the best shows ever. This was a radio show that started at 6 a.m. It was supposed to end at 10. I think it was supposed to end originally at 9. But Stern would usually go all the way to 11. I remember one morning when I was working at Spencer Gifts, I looked at the clock, and at 11:30, he was still on the air. And like, I was astounded. Now, even at Spencer's, a store that sold vibrators, massagers, sex oils, and fake blow-up sex dolls, we would still have customers go, "I can't believe you're playing this Stern, man." I'm like, have you looked around at what we sell here, lady? You're going to get fit at the radio? What are you doing in here? Oh, you're here for your Creator card or your lava lamp? But, yeah, I'll never forget that day, that 11:30 day. Late in the show, somebody showed up claiming to be possessed by the devil. So Stern brought him in. Stern was the guy that turned no one away. And everybody got the same courtesy in an interview, no matter what their stature was. And that's why he was so good. If you were a garbage man, you got the same interview as George Clooney. If you were a hooker at the Bunny Ranch in Las Vegas or in Nevada, you got the same interview as Jennifer Aniston. Like, he didn't judge people. He brought them in, and he just wanted to know what their deal was. He brought that guy in who was possessed by the devil. He took calls from roommates who were saying he was faking. Like, it was so riveting. Like, you just couldn't turn away. And I got to be, God, the biggest Howard Stern fan. Like, I didn't miss an episode. And it was on every day. I didn't miss an episode. And you, it's hard to imagine, like, things are so different now. Like, if you like a television show, you don't have to be home when it's on. You just have to set your DVR to record it, and you can watch it whenever you want. It's called time shifting. radio's not quite like that, although later on Stern would figure out how to broadcast his show all day, every day, which we'll get to at the end here. But these were the kind of shows, the radio shows especially, if you liked them, you had to tune in. And if you didn't tune in, you missed out. If you slept in late, you missed out. And there were like days off, I would sleep in till 9, and I would be so angry with myself because I missed the Stern show. And like, oh, Jeff, you should just set an alarm clock. Well, you know, when you're 18, 19, 20, alarm clocks don't really work. It's not in your realm. You could take an alarm clock and throw it across the room. I think one time I did. I took an alarm clock and just destroyed it. And Rachel was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "It wouldn't turn off, so I had to destroy it." But you started to, like, the Stern show was so good that you would rearrange your schedule around the show. It's like, I didn't do that for anything. You got in the car, you turn on the radio, you listen to the radio. Whatever was on, that's what you listened to. Stern was different. I worked in Hawaiian Gardens. From Norwalk to Hawaiian Gardens, 20 minutes. So I would time getting in the car for when Stern was coming back from break. Because if you got in the car and he went to break, you spent the whole drive listening to commercials. And that was not fun. Because Stern's commercial breaks were 20 to 25 minutes. Towards the end, they were 30 minutes plus. And you could literally spend your whole drive in a commercial break. So you started planning it like, oh, he's in a commercial break. Even though I'm not quite ready, I will rush it so that when he comes back, I'll be in the car driving to work and I'll get the full show on the ride there. Like, that's crazy. That's conditioning a human, like Pavlov's dog. Please welcome back Howard Stern. Oh my God, get in the car. It's time to go. Why? Because Stern's back on. Really? You let the radio show control your life? Yeah, why? Because it's that good. So, the great thing that Stern did when he showed up in LA was he would let people know like what the show's about, who the people on the air are. We got to hear the origin of Baba Booey and who Jackie the Joke Man was and Stuttering John. Big fan. And all the things that he got in trouble for. Oh my God. He got smacked in the face one time by Raquel Welch. And he asked Dice what he should do. And Dice goes, "What are you going to do? Sue a chick for hitting you?" And, John did nothing. But I used to listen religiously. Like, it's hard to believe. Like, I would get up at 6 a.m., get ready for work, drive to work, and then when I worked at Spencer's, turn the radio on. And so you're talking about 4 to 5 hours every day listening to Howard Stern. That is a commitment. Oh my God. Bits. He would take calls. He'd have a celebrity guest, sometimes a musical guest, and then it would culminate in Robin doing the news. And Robin doing the news was the best part of the show because it was Stern at his finest commenting on current events and social satire. And again, those of you who tuned out from Stern because he just objectified women or it was all about nudity, you really did, you missed out. Because you missed out on some of the greatest celebrity interviews of all time. The time he brought in William Shatner, and he asked William Shatner, he says, "We're bringing a girl in that's a little bit of a butterface. What does that mean?" Shatner didn't know. Shatner goes, it's kind of when your face takes on a buttery appearance. And Stern goes, no. It's when everything's good, butterface. And Shatner almost died. Oh my God. There was the time that, Howard was big fans with Chip Z'Nuff from the band Enough's Enough. Like, not my thing. Not my thing. I think Enough's Enough does the theme song for, Doug Barnes' The Season Pass. The song they have at the end about, big wheels keep on turning, but not Proud Mary. It's not that one. I'm a wheel, I'm a turn. But Chip Z'Nuff one time, talked about having sex with Madonna. Like, She was the sexual icon of our generation, and this guy had sex with her and he was talking about it. Oh my God. Like, really? One time, Sebastian Bach from Skid Row tied his genitals into a knot on the air. Like, what? What am I listening to? Oh my God. Like, it was every day another, oh my God, revelation moment. Either an interview, a bit, a phone call. The woman who called up one time and kept screaming, "It doesn't matter! It doesn't matter!" And like, here's the other thing. You would listen to the Stern Show in the morning, and then you would quote it all day in conversation, and people would have no idea what you're talking about. You know, I would go, my professional life is at like a 9. My personal life is at like a 2. And people would go, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's the Gary apology tape. How do you not know what the Gary apology tape is? I have no idea what you're talking about. So, this went on for years. You know, Stern started in LA in 91. And I just listened, I probably listened to 80% of the show. The 20% was sleeping or on vacation or having to go into work and not being able to hear it for whatever reason, you know. And then the other thing, I would tape the show on cassette and then listen to it again and again and again. I put a bunch of those on YouTube so people could share them. Because they have all the original commercials. That was the other thing that was weird about the Stern Show. You got to know not only the show itself, but they would play the same commercials over and over again. And you just, like, there was one for, Howard had such weird sponsors early. Before he became legitimate, the sponsors were so weird. Like, the big sponsor of the show when he started in LA was the Brother P Touch, which was a label maker. It was a little box with a keyboard on top. You put your thing in and a label. It would spew out a label. Like, it was a $150 label machine that I actually considered going out and purchasing because I was such a big fan of the show until I realized, what am I going to do with it? But it was sold to like label videotapes or drawers or boxes in your garage. And the commercial featured Red. From the Tube Bar. I label everything that I hate. This is my friend Red. And I was just in awe because the Tube Bar tapes, which I have to do a full episode on, were legendary as the greatest phony phone calls ever made. And the Stern Show was referencing them with Billy West doing the voice of Red. Unbelievable. Like, my mind was blown over and over again. There was one of my favorite moments of all time. It was a Mother's Day where Fred Norris bought his mom a Cookie Puss. Remember Cookie Puss from Carvel Ice Cream? They used to sell Fudgy the Whale and Cookie Puss, and it was a real gravelly guy. He'd go, "This is Tom Carvel from Carvel Ice Creams, and who wouldn't love a good Cookie Puss or Fudgy the Whale for Valentine's Day? You can get it on. It's a delicious ice cream cake made fresh by Carvel." Now, Carvel went out of business in California really quick, but they are still in business in New York, and they do a lot of stuff where, like, you go up to like at Ralph's, they sell it pre-made in the case, but there isn't standalone Carvel ice creams like there are in the East Coast. But Fred bought his mom a Cookie Puss Carvel ice cream cake for Mother's Day, and Howard tormented him mercilessly. He cranked his voice up high and became Cookie Puss and would talk to Fred. Hey Fred, it's Cookie Puss. Why'd you buy me for your mother, Cookie Puss? And there were times like you're driving on the freeway and you're listening to it and you start wobbling the wheel because you're laughing so hard. Like, how many things in life can you say, like, you laugh so hard you hurt, you physically hurt? You know, there's only a handful of movies that can do that. Movies are funny, but I'm talking like debilitating funny, and it hurts. That was the Howard Stern Show. Still is. And, oh God, Cookie Puss, and you name it. So, one of the big early things that Stern did was he appeared at the 1992 MTV Awards as Fart Man with Luke Perry And it was the talk of Hollywood. They were supposed to make this Fart Man movie, but it never materialized. Written by J.F. Lawton, who wrote Under Siege, and didn't he write Pretty Woman when it was called 3000? But Stern was going to, he touted it for months. I'm going to be at the MTV Awards. And I was like, I'm going, man. I've only listened to Stern for like a year or less, but I'm going to this thing. So I grabbed this girl Angie that I had tried to date in high school and didn't work out. So I tried to date her again as an adult and it didn't work out. But I took her to the MTV Awards. We snuck in, and for like an hour and a half, I stood 3 feet away while the Stern Show did their live live for the next day broadcast from the MTV Awards. I watched them interview random girls in the audience, and then Tori Spelling, and I stood next to Gary Delabate for a second, and I got on the air for a second. Here's the thing. I have never heard this broadcast because I was out till 3 a.m, slept in the next day, never got to hear it, never seen it re-aired. If you search on YouTube for the MTV Awards, all you get is the footage of him as Fart Man, but not the actual radio show that aired the next day. So I've never heard it, but I'm pretty sure that across from the way a girl was talking about taking her top off, and I leaned into the microphone and I went, "Oh my." And Gary gave me a dirty look and walked away. So I would love, love, love to hear that footage if, there's a way to track it down. But that's really obscure kind of footage. Somebody would have had to gotten up the next morning and taped it, or Stern would have to replay it on his satellite feed. But I don't think it's ever aired again. But it was really cool, like with less than a year in, a New York radio show doing a live show here out in LA, and me just standing there getting to watch it. Like, it was so like, oh my God, they're right there. There's Howard and Robin and Jackie and Fred and Stuttering John and Gary. Oh my God, they're all here. They're real. And that was a lot of fun. Now, not that long after, they hit #1 in LA and threw a big party where they had a funeral for Mark and Brian. I didn't go to that. That you had to get up and stay up all night. It was not my style. I'm not really into hanging out in a giant mega crowd. And it looked like a lot of fun. It was listening to it on the radio was a lot of fun, but I didn't go to that one. But my next brush with Stern would be when he released his book Private Parts, which is we're finally getting to it. Stern wrote a book, Howard Stern's Private Parts, and those of us who listened to the show were rabid because he'd been talking about this thing for like a year and a half. Oh, he's writing a book with Ratso Sloman, Ratso Rizzo. They're working on a book, da-da-da-da. And when the book came out, it was the fastest selling autobiography of all time, smashing every single record. It's hard to imagine this day and age a book, people lining up. I mean, they did it for Harry Potter. That might be the only example of a book coming out and people losing their minds. They were hard to get initially. Stores didn't order enough. They had to print again and again and again. But I finally got mine, read it cover to cover in one night. It was great. It's a very funny book. It's very well done. And then Stern went on a book signing tour, and they were like massive, massive events. And I actually went down to Pasadena. I stayed out all freaking night. Now, by this time, Rachel and I are together. Rachel didn't go because she had a job at Lane Bryant. She didn't want to lose. She thinks about it now and she gets so angry that she missed out on meeting Stern because of Lane Bryant. But I was there all night. I made Stern a Fart Man 12-inch custom doll and handed it to him. He was moving the books through like an assembly line because his thing was, instead of having a moment with everybody and leaving people unhappy who didn't get in, he stayed and signed till everybody got a book signed. He was friendly for the few seconds I was there. He was cordial, and I was moved down the line. But I do have my, to this day, signed copy of Private Parts. For a while, they were going for massive amounts of money. I think the market has sort of fallen through at this point. But I got deathly ill staying out all night. Ended up in bed for like a week with near pneumonia from the cold and the awfulness of being outside. But you know what? Totally worth it. Totally worth it to get my Stern book signed, okay? So the radio show continued through the 90s. Eventually they were put on E! Entertainment Network. It was the Howard Stern radio show on television. And that thing was great because there was sometimes a complete immediacy to it. You would listen. This was great because we never had this kind of access before. This is long before the internet, obviously. But he would do a show in the morning and talk about he would bring a girl in and she would, I don't know, jump on a trampoline or rub baby oil. He would, whatever. And he would talk about how hot she was. And then they would put it on the E! Show that night. So you could listen in the morning and then, at night actually see what the hell they were talking about. This was a complete revelation in viewing. You basically listened to the show twice this way, didn't care, but you got to see the women that he was fawning. And sometimes you'd go, wow, oh my God, Stern, you're totally right. And other times you'd go, this guy is like P.T. Barnum because this girl's a 2 and he is talking her up like she is a 12. But that's radio, baby. It's all in your mind. I was listening the first time he told a woman to sit on the speaker and turn up the bass really loud, like really silly stuff. So when they announced eventually, obviously, that they were going to do a Howard Stern movie, when Fart Man fell through, it became they were going to do Private Parts as a movie. And in the meantime, he had done a second book, Miss America. I skipped the signing on that one. I didn't want to get sick again. But, a lot of people got their book signed. I wish I had, but, what are you going to do? Life intercedes. As you get older, you have less and less free time to do stupid stuff. You have to really, really concentrate to make time to do stupid stuff. But you know what? If you want some advice from 91 Reasons, the stupid stuff is the stuff you remember. That's the stuff worth doing. On your deathbed, regret the things you did, not the things you didn't do. Boy, I wish I'd done that. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? But they announced they were making Private Parts. They went through a bunch of directors at one time. I think even Ivan Reitman was going to direct, but he ended up producing. And he got Betty Thomas to direct. Betty Thomas had done the Brady Bunch movie. She was on Hill Street Blues, of all things. And the movie was good and bad in this respect. It was great that they were making a movie because part of the thing about being a Stern listener is you want everyone to be a Stern listener. And when people badmouth Stern, you really don't understand what their problem is. You're like, you're badmouthing him. Well, did you listen and hate it? Oh, no, I would never listen to that trash. So you've never listened? No. Well, then how can you hate it if you don't listen to it? Like, I don't like guacamole because I tried it. I don't like it. Well, I just know. Well, you don't know because you never listened. And you're spewing all the stuff that people who don't listen talk about because that's what they think the show is, but they're all completely wrong. But a movie's mainstream, man. You can't get more mainstream than a Paramount picture. So we knew this was going to be a big thing for Stern listeners. So the bad part was that when he was making the movie, he left early every single day to go make it. He'd go, all right, Robin, let's do the news at 9. And by 9:30, he was like, all right, wrap it up. We got to get out. We're doing the movie. And I'd go, oh, we're being robbed. We're being robbed of hours of Stern news. My favorite part. Nix the guest. Start the news earlier. Do 2 hours of news. Irritating. But it was worth it because eventually the movie premiered. Now, Private Parts is a strange movie. And I want to thank, right in the middle of it, we're going to thank Michael Bondi, Patreon pledger, who supports the show every month on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. And he's always making really cool movie choices for me to watch. So he suggested Private Parts, and I was like, absolutely, because I can talk about not only the movie, but the entire Stern listening his history and what the show means. So thank you, Michael, for this great opportunity to talk about Howard Stern on 91 Reasons. There wouldn't be a 91 Reasons without a Howard Stern. Howard Stern invented turning on the mic and pouring out your brain onto the air. And, that's the kind of show I like to do. There are shows out there, a lot of podcasts that just interview people all day, every day. Now, I like interviewing people. But I also like just sitting here and turning the mic on and seeing what happens. And I wouldn't be able to do that if Howard Stern hadn't paved the way. Because the radio that he created was unlike any the world had ever seen. This was a guy who managed to use radio in a way that transcended the medium. Like this is what it was for. And all the program directors who tried to rein him in, all the ways he got around it made the show better. The innuendo, the double entendre, talking over the music, like really made the show. Putting Robin in a bubble. And the great thing about Private Parts, the movie, is that you get to see the origin of all these things. You get to see Stern as a little kid. Now, here's I'm right off the bat. Let's just get it out of the way. There's a certain part of this movie that I don't like. I don't like that at the beginning it's presented as a faux documentary. Because it opens with Allison Janney, and she looks at the camera and she goes, he was offensive. He once had a contest where he was going to judge the listener with the heaviest bowel movement. Should I continue? And that's great, except that the faux documentary footage is weird because you get Robin Quivers playing Robin Quivers. But then you get, what's her name, playing Allison Stern. And that's not Allison Stern. It's an actress. It's Mary McCormick, not Maureen McCormick. That's Marsha Brady. Mary McCormick. So it's either a documentary with the real people commenting on what we're about to see, or it's a fake documentary, except some of the people are real. So that's the only part of Private Parts I really don't dig, is they couldn't find that line, like, get the real people to talk about the movie versus real and fake people talking about the movie. It's very, very confusing from the viewer's viewpoint, and it doesn't really gel as far as I'm concerned. But that's a small nitpick in a film that's actually very well done. We get to see Howard as a young boy being dragged off to the radio station with his dad. His dad is a frequent guest on the radio show. And so seeing him play the movie is very funny, Symphony Sid, by the power invested in me by the FCC, I order you to get on the air and finish your show in a professional manner. This is Symphony Sid. All that great stuff. He goes, this is me and my dad. Yeah, a little bonding. And then Howard's doomed puppet show where all the puppets have sex with each other. I don't understand why I can't have my puppets. Shut up. You know why. Really, really cool stuff. I love the quick shot of him being paranoid in his room with the marijuana when he turns around suddenly. Like, it's all played very well. We always felt kind of bad for the teenage guy, because being told you looked like Howard Stern at the time was not a compliment. Stern's not a good-looking guy. That's part of his appeal, is that he looks like the rest of us. He's not handsome. He's not Ryan freaking Seacrest. Private Parts quickly gets into college, where he becomes a college DJ, knocks all his stuff when he knocks all his records over. He meets Allison, and he starts really honing the craft of radio DJ and finding the secrets. And there's that moment where they're at the gas station where he goes, I have to be completely honest with my audience. I have to. But then it follows it up with, he tells the story of his wife having a miscarriage, and she just cannot believe this was for the air. And there's a moment where he goes, I got 4 hours to fill. And you get that moment of like, I've had that with Rachel. Like, what's for the air and what's not? Because we did that show where we talked about my best friend from high school trying to have an affair with Rachel and wanting to have me killed. And I just remember going, this is a completely raw, honest episode. And we had a lot of arguments as to whether it should be part of 91 Reasons. But I think ultimately we decided that it was going to go up on the feed simply because it's actually helped people. You know, we got emails from people who's like, this is what marriage is. It is not perfect all the time. And you're telling people in the audience you have to work at it, which is a revelation because most people don't tell you that. Oh, I've been married, it's fine. Or they get divorced at the drop of a hat. They throw away years of a relationship because of one. I mean, what happened at that moment was not enough to destroy my marriage. So we thought it would help people. And Stern was the same way. You know, again, there would be no 91 Reasons without the Howard Stern radio show. It's a fact. And then as he moves through the radio stations, you know, Hop Along Howie with WWWW. Got a new guy in the morning, kind of looks like Big Bird. My favorite sequence is Marty. I am Marty, station manager. You want to see me, Marty? You came late yesterday. You came late today. I don't need you anymore. You're fired. F you. No, F you! All right, you're hired. I mean, Marty's the greatest. These jockeys are like dogs. Your job is to make them fetch. Great. I mean, Private Parts is a great movie. Some of the weird in the middle stuff with Gary and the bikini girls, and are they going to do it? You know, Howard goes to Hartford and becomes a radio DJ at WCCC. You know, you get to see Crackhead Bob, and it was a fun, almost like if you had to compare Private Parts to another movie, this is going to sound crazy. It's like the Muppet movie. Because you get to see how all of these people, all of these friends that come into your life every day, how they got together and how they put on the show. You know, it's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to meet the strippers on the Stern Show tonight. I mean, it's very part of it, you know, that vibe. And watching the movie was, you know, the whole gang's here, you know. Stuttering John at the end. I was just making you a potato. I'm on the credits, you know. But the movie, Stern plays himself really well. His acting is great. It's understated. Robin Quivers does great. Fred Norris almost steals the movie. But the movie belongs to one person and one person only, and that is the unbelievably great Paul Giamatti. I had no idea who Paul Giamatti was prior to Private Parts, but as I left the theater, I said, I want to see that guy in every freaking movie. Paul Giamatti as Pig Vomit, because he looks like a pig and makes me want to vomit. Paul Giamatti is a powerhouse in this movie. He is so unbelievably good. Oh my God. You know, I brought you down here, Howard, because you got to learn to say the call letters, because you don't say them like Imus, and you're not real professional. Like we do real radio here in New York. So I want you to say the call letters with me. WNBC, WNBC. I mean, that is the greatest scene of the movie. The WNBC scene is stellar. It's where we got 91 Reasons. Absolutely. If you're going to steal from the best. And you know the scenes that Paul Giamatti is in, he owns them. One of my favorite scenes, it's such a small scene, is where he's at the urinal taking a leak, and you can hear on the radio they've got his wife on the air, and he just looks up with such an expression of pain on his face. He has no dialogue. Like, you can just tell, like, to me, it looks like a real moment. I mean, it's acting at its nth degree. Giamatti is a whirlwind in this movie. You have soiled the sanctity of my home. I became a Paul Giamatti uber fan after this movie and watched him in The Negotiator and Big Fat Liar and American Splendor and Sideways And even when he was the Rhino in that awful Spider-Man movie. Like, I would watch Paul Giamatti in anything. He is so good. And it all goes back to Private Parts, where he owns the movie, you know? Welcome to NBC, Howard. It's stellar. And then you watch Howard's rise to the top of the ratings in the movie. It's all very well done. It's a very solid biopic. I would put it right alongside some of my other favorite biopics, like Great Balls of Fire, where they tell the story of this person's life or this person's career, but it's also got some elements of fantasy in it and fancifulness that keep it from being just a dry, here are the facts of this guy's life. You know, Howard seeing Carol Alt's breast get really big. It's weird because they do that in the beginning and they don't revisit it at the end. It's a little strange, but that's okay. You get to see the dominatrix leather lady, you know. What's the weather like? It's cold, but your butt's going to get warm. She's great, the weather lady. And all the, you know, Jackie the Joke Man finally shows up. Jenna Jameson shows up to be the first naked lady in the history of radio. Private Parts, I've seen it, oh my God, at least 100 times. I've seen it a lot. I actually saw Private Parts 2 or 3 times in the theater, and then right near the end of its run, I found it at a drive-in. So I went and saw it at the drive-in, and I recorded it on a cassette player so that I could listen to it in the car. That's how much I enjoyed the Stern experience, and I really loved the movie. It was on a double bill with... You got to see Private Parts first, and then Beavis and Butthead Do America. Like, that's a double bill, man. It's great at the end when Howard finally becomes number one. He has a child, and he goes. He gets a late night visit from Pig Vomit. Now, Howard, the ratings are going to come out, and you're number one. And I just want to let you know I'm here for you, whatever you need. And Howard just goes, F you, and slams the door. And it was just such a great moment for any underdog who has succeeded despite the powers that be, even sometimes the people you work for, trying to hold you back. And the moment that he slams the door in Pig Vomit's face, we're all there. We are as excited as he is to go, I don't have to put up with you anymore. I am number one. I did it on my terms, my way, despite your meddling, you know. He does it despite all the support going to Imus. I never listened to Imus. He never aired out here. Not my thing. The few times I've listened to Imus, I've been totally unimpressed. There's been a bunch of Stern clones out here. The worst one was they put this idiot on after Stern in the first few years, the Grease Man. The Grease Man, he'd go, ooh, welcome to the Grease Man show. Why don't download? It's me, the Grease Man. I would go, what? Who listens to this? This is like giving Bowser from Sha-Na-Na an open mic for 3 hours. Oh my God. And the Grease Man would he would start telling you a story, and at the end, it would turn out to be like a really long, stupid joke. Like it wasn't anything interesting other than it had a punchline. Oh, terrible, terrible radio. Oh my God. But, no, the Private Parts movie is great. It ends with Paul Giamatti looking at the camera, you know, and the language is so bad that even though it's an R-rated movie, they had to put a jackhammer over him talking so that people didn't get completely offended by what he's saying. It's really funny. Again, it is a star-making turn, and even though like there wasn't a chance in a million or a billion that they were going to even look at Private Parts at Oscar time, it really is a shame that Paul Giamatti wasn't given a Best Supporting nod for his turn as Pig Vomit. I mean, he's that good. It's a character you hate. You instantly, you want to kill him, but Giamatti infuses him with such personality that it's one of those guys you love to hate. That's why he's so good, you know? WNBC. There'd be a lot more I could talk about the movie, except a lot of the lines are really dirty. You can't really get into them on this because our show is G-rated. But again, if you've resisted watching Private Parts because you're not a Stern fan, you're really missing out on a really good movie that might give you a different opinion of the man. You know, and that's a darn rare thing. Most of the times you go in and watch a biopic, and when you leave, you're like, oh, okay, that's about what I figured the way he was, you know. So that's, you know, you go see Ray. That's how I figured Ray Charles was. Yeah, sure. You go see this one, you're like, this is not what I expected. I expected a degenerate, and instead I get a family man who loves his wife and his kids and did what he did to make money to give them a good life. Now, the ironic part is that though Private Part ends with Howard exalting how great his marriage is to Allison, you know, they would divorce years later, but, you know, what are you going to do? He's remained a fixture in his kid's life, as far as I know. He's made more money than most people will ever even dream of dreaming of. But the movie premiered. It was number one for a while. It's a bummer that Paramount gave it a bare bones release. It's never been given special anything. At one point, Stern offered to buy the movie from Paramount so that he could put out a deluxe Blu-ray with commentary and deleted scenes and yada yada. And the studio turned him down, which is a real shame because with a history as rich as The Stern Show, a movie like Private Parts is begging for a 3-hour director's cut and then commentary and everything in between. But it's never going to happen. They're never going to. And he's lost interest at this point. They could hand him the movie for free, and I don't think he'd ever spend a minute doing anything with it. There were rumors of a Miss America movie or a sequel at some point, but it never happened. There was talk of they were going to make a Love Boat movie at one point. And part of the gag was that halfway through the voyage, they would pass the hate boat going the other way, and Stern was going to play the captain of the hate boat. You know, thankfully that never panned out. The other big rumor was after Stern played himself so well in Private Parts, he was going to play the Scarecrow in Joel Schumacher's Batman Triumphant, the sequel to Batman Forever. I know that we've heard Jeff Goldblum's name bounced around and a few other names, but I do believe they did consider Stern for the role of Scarecrow. I mean, that would have been crazy. You know, it would have been a really weird movie because of Schumacher's tendencies, what he does in movies, you know, with cod pieces and nipples and garish neon lighting and nonsensical action. Who knows what would have happened? There's no clue. But Stern's never made a movie since. It was a one-time shot. His career on regular radio went massive. He was syndicated at the end in, I think, nearly every state in America, in every market. The show was on all the time. And then he announced he was moving to satellite. I was excited for this because satellite offered a way to listen to the Stern Show and not have it censored. Because towards the end, like, we're talking about a weird time in America. That stupid half-time Super Bowl show with Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson. The stupid repercussions of that dumb half second of television where he reached over and pulled off the covering of her breast so that it popped out. Now her nipples were covered, but the boob popped out. A wardrobe malfunction. I can't believe that even was allowed to become a thing. It was a wardrobe malfunction. No. It was a calculated moment, which, if they didn't know, is their problem, not mine. But it ignited a firestorm of what's acceptable on TV and what's not. And what's acceptable on radio sort of got pulled into it. And the Stern Show started getting heavily censored. It would air live in New York, unedited. And KLSX would air the live broadcast in the morning up until 6. If Howard ran, because they would start at 2 or 3 a.m. And we would air here, and they'd go, and now KLSX will rebroadcast the entire Stern Show from the beginning, and then it would start over. Well, what happened is Howard would start talking, and then what he was saying suddenly wouldn't make sense. And an hour later, he'd get a phone call and he'd go, hey, dude, the last 45 minutes of your show didn't air in Philadelphia or Washington. And he'd go, what? And they had this idiot, I can't remember his name, Somebody was the censor for the Stern Show, and he would sit in a room, and if he didn't like what was being said, he would push a button, and it would just cut that part of the show out and stitch it together to when he let go of the button, and that's how the show would go out. So we started getting these really heavily edited Howard Stern shows. Like, he would go, "Oh, I can't believe you're Brett. Oh, and now Robin with the news." You'd go, "What happened?" "Oh, the editing guy cut the show up because they're terrified of getting something from the FCC. The FCC, after the Super Bowl incident, the FCC went on a rampage, giving citations to everyone for even the smallest infractions. It was almost as if we went back to the Puritan days where you couldn't say anything on television. Now, you know me, and a lot of things that I watch don't have to be dirty that are dirty now, and that's just the way life is. That's just it's supposed to be edgy. But there was this weird moment in time where you would expect something to be dirty, and it wouldn't be. Biggest example I can give you, other than the Stern Show, and the Stern Show was big, but I can't give you an exact example, and I can't play anything for you, but I can tell you that Britney Spears did her Onyx tour, Onyx Hotel tour, where she was supposed to be running a hotel. That was the theme of the show. And Showtime picked up the rights to air one of her concerts. Now, I'm an unabashed Britney Spears fan. The music's okay. I just like looking at her. Just, indulge me. Everybody has their stupid thing, right? So my wife ordered Showtime because she knew I was like, oh man, I wish I could watch that concert. Because, we had watched her previous concert from the MGM, which was great, and almost ended up at a party with her, which was really cool, but ultimately didn't happen. Since then, I have seen her in concert. I've actually been within 6 feet of her. But this Onyx Hotel tour, which was really a blip in Britney's career, and not to get into Britney Spears at all, but it's interesting in that one of the songs of the album that she had was Touch of My Hand, I think it was called. And basically it's about masturbation. And at one point she draws a bath on stage, gets in the bath, and sings this song. Now, this is Showtime. This is pay cable. I am paying extra money to watch this concert. I didn't stumble onto it by accident. It didn't air on PBS or ABC. It was on pay cable. And when she got in the bathtub, suddenly the camera angle was from the back of the auditorium, as if I had purchased the cheapest seat there. And it stayed there until she finished the song, or it cut to some other dancer. And when she finally finished the song, then the camera got closer. And I remember turning to Rachel and went, they just censored a show I paid extra for. That's obscene. That's ridiculous. Censorship is the worst thing ever. Let me decide what's dirty. If I don't like it, I will change the channel. But in the aftermath of that stupid Super Bowl show, Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake really took us back 30 years in censorship. And the Stern Show was front and center of that. So Stern had no choice but to look for another avenue. And when he picked satellite radio, I went along right with him. I was a subscriber from day one. And I'll tell you, that first 6 months on Sirius satellite radio was some of the best Stern Show ever. There were minimal commercials. He was on 5-6 hours a day. They would talk about stuff that they were never able to talk about on KLSX, on regular radio. They played the show again one time per day, and eventually he took calls from the audience and discovered that we just wanted to hear the show on a loop. So it got to be where you could, if you missed the first airing, and most of us did, you could listen to the rebroadcast ad nauseum as many times as you wanted. And it just was funny because I'm not a technical guy, but I had Sirius satellite radio, antennas everywhere. I had receivers. You had to have a receiver and a radio. So the receiver picked the signal up from space, and then it sent it to your radio to a station that wasn't being used. It was very complicated. And then when I left in the morning to go to work, I would have to hook it all up in my car. Cigarette lighter, receiver, radio, channel nobody's on, Stern Show. But you know what? I did it. I did it for years. I tried getting one of their headset things, but it was really awkward and didn't really work. It made me look like Lobot, and I was not interested in looking like Lobot. But eventually what happened was when we moved to Riverside, a couple of things. It became harder and harder to get the show, even on satellite. I would have to move it from different parts of the house, depending on where I was. And it just got to be a lot of trouble moving things around, and the wires would get worn out. You'd have to buy replacement wires, and the monthly fees would go up and down, this, that. Sometimes if you call, you got like, oh, we don't want to lose you as a customer, so we'll give you 3 months free. And then you forget to call after 3 months to get the rate they promised, and it would be twice the rate. And I just was like, you know what? I think I am going to end my relationship with Sirius Satellite. And I had even considered doing the deal where it was like lifetime membership. But I realized, like, it's weird too, because I was doing a massive commute at that time from Riverside to Orange County, but moving the thing into the car and stuff it got to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't want to have to buy different setups for the house and versus the car, and I need it in different parts of the house, and it doesn't really reach different parts of the house if I leave it in one room. So it just sort of went by the wayside. And the good news is that YouTube has become the saving grace of the Stern Show in so much as you can pretty much get a show on there within a couple of days of it airing on satellite. The other thing is, this is what Stern became. He started taking a lot of vacations. And he was on vacation a lot. And out of a month, he might do 4 new shows. Because he started doing like Monday through Thursday. And then it was Monday through Thursday every other week. And then 1 week out of the month. And I just got to be like, what's going on? And then a lot of commercials. And I don't begrudge the guy making a dime. He made a lot of money signing with Sirius. But like on a satellite show that I'm already paying for. I'm paying for the privilege. I'm also having to listen to 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's beginning to sound like KLSX all over again with the amount of commercials being aired. So I just sort of ended my love affair with listening to it live and fresh. But that being said, I listen to clips on YouTube nearly every day. And I have some of my favorite clips that I listen to again and again and again. I have listened to the sequence where Eric the Midget fights with Steve Langford over a signing appearance where they go 0.0. I think I listened to that 200 times. And it never stops. It's always freaking funny to me. 0.0. There's a sequence where Sal and Richard are screwing around with Gary the retard, trying to call into the show, and it is some of the funniest. I just discovered one where Howard talks about Gary falling asleep on the plane after a really bad Arsenio Hall appearance, and in the middle of it, Robin starts laughing so hard she has tears coming out of her eyes, and I laugh so hard. Oh my God. Billy West doing Marge Schott, the racist owner of the Cincinnati Reds. The Howard Stern Show has provided me with more hours of entertainment than any other single source of entertainment my entire life. More than Star Wars, more than Back to the Future, because, again, 5 hours a day for over a decade. And then now YouTube all the time as background noise. Rediscovering my old tapes and converting them to digital. I have had a relationship and a fan base with The Stern Show since 1991. That is a long time. We've watched some of the Whack Packers die. Bigfoot died, and then Eric the Midget. Bye for now. And Crackhead Bob. And Dickie Dimaine. All of them the greatest. So much fun. So much good memories listening to them. It is a bummer I don't listen to the car anymore, but that's just, just the way life goes. He's on satellite, but he's not on satellite all the time. So I would never buy into that again. There's enough content on YouTube to keep me in Stern shows for the rest of my life, with only minimal repeats if I wanted them. But I don't mind the repeats because, like a good movie, the sequences are as familiar to me as any movie sequence, and I do enjoy listening to the repetition of that. Maybe that speaks to my mental health in some way. I don't mind listening to a radio sequence over and over again. Like I don't know. I can't explain it other than the Stern Show, the way it's aired and the way it's produced, makes you feel like you're hanging out with these guys. You're hanging out with Sal the Stockbroker and Richard Christie and KC and Benji and Mr. Skin and all the other guys that are on the Mr. Methane and all the guests. The greatest guest that ever appeared, Gilbert Gottfried, the funniest guy. When Gilbert's in on the news, it is the finest radio you will ever hear. There are times I've been listening, I can't breathe. I am laughing so hard at Gilbert, and he's doing Cardinal Gottfried and Dracula Gottfried, and just basically just his commentary. What is there left to say? I mean, I'm over an hour on Stern. It's fantastic. Great stuff. Discover it on YouTube. You'll love it. Watch Private Parts. Watch Paul Giamatti tear the screen up. I want to thank Michael Bondi for his Patreon pledge, supporting the show. We couldn't do it without you. Got a little different one for you this month, didn't I? Instead of just a basic movie review, it was a lifestyle review of my Stern Show addiction, wrapped up in a review of Private Parts, the movie. It's a bonus one, right? It's great. Always got to have a hook. Thanks for tuning in. As you can tell, I am losing my voice. I have talked so long at this clip here. Join me at the Improv on Melrose on February 19th. Like us on Facebook. Support us on Patreon, like Michael Bondi. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. I swear to God, your movie review episodes are coming. I'm sorry they're taking so long. It's the same story I always have of just being swamped. I've got more episodes in the pipeline, lots going on. Check out my books on Amazon, The Sixth Key, The Lost Station, The Infinite Backward. We will be appearing at WonderCon Easter weekend at the Los Angeles Convention Center, all 3 days. We will have a table with books to sell and time boxes. If you're a fan of the show, come over and say hello. We're in the small press section until we become so loud they throw us out. So, chances to come hang out with us. What could be better? The entire Tucker family will be there. Austin will no doubt be in some ridiculous costume. That's worth checking out alone. We're still stuck at 51 reviews on iTunes. I would love to hit 52. Please, somebody review the show on iTunes so we can see that number go up. Thanks for tuning in. I am Jeff Tucker. I am the voice of WNBC.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
You want to be a disc jockey?
Very much so. I've wanted to be a disc jockey since I was 7 years old.
What are you, an idiot?
No, sir, I'm not an idiot. In fact, I have a communications degree from Boston University, and I would work very hard for this company if given the opportunity
You want
to
to see me? You came late yesterday. You came late today. I don't need you. You're fired.
The other thing that Stern did for the 90s and for pop culture and culture itself and public sentiment and feeling, this is going to sound crazy, and I know there are certain people who are going to listen to this and go, "Oh, Jeff, you're the biggest idiot. I'm tuning out." But hear me out. Hear me out. We have gone through recently a complete wave of change in respect to the way the general populace treats homosexuals. For millennial, for thousands of years, homosexuals have been treated terribly. They've been killed, stoned, murdered, lynched, thought to be unnatural, and blah, 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 blah. And when Stern came along, he actually worked diligently to turn that sentiment. And he did it for his own selfish reasons, of course. He did it for ratings. But it doesn't change the fact that he did actually change the way culture thinks. And hear me out. Because prior to listening to the Howard Stern Show, I had trouble with women. I couldn't get dates. I was miserable all the time. And then Stern comes on the air, and he's very open talking about lesbianism and two women together. And this was not in the mainstream at all before Howard Stern. Stern was the guy to turn the light on in the closet. And when he had lesbians on, he would interview them for an hour or longer. He wanted to know everything about what it was like to be a woman who loved women. And I remember when Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, I think it was 93, Rachel and I went over to our friend Jeff and Nancy Whiteman's house to watch the Howard Stern New Year's Eve special. He used to do, before he could get on regular TV, the Channel 9 show was heavily edited, and he wanted to do uncut shows. He would do pay-per-view specials, and this New Year's Eve pay-per-view special was the Miss Howard Stern pageant. And it was groundbreaking in that it featured a lot of lesbians, and not just what you would think, like lipstick, quote-unquote pretty lesbians. They also had, just lesbians, women who liked women who didn't look feminine. There were like 2 or 3 in the pageant, and Howard treated those women just like all the other women. And I think that laid the groundwork, for treating people just normal. No, not special, just like everybody else. And isn't that what the goal has always been? Is for homosexual, for gay people, all they've ever wanted is to be treated like regular people, like everybody else. Don't read anything into that. I'm stumbling over my words, but everybody just wants to be treated like everybody else. Nobody wants to be treated special. Nobody wants to be ostracized. So Stern, when he comes on the air, he starts talking about lesbianism and women together, and the idea that the ultimate male fantasy is 2 women at once who love each other. And you know what? It sent me into a spiral, because I was like, wait a minute. I can't get 1 woman. And the guy on the radio is telling me I somehow got to get 2? This is a goal I cannot achieve. I am not that savvy. I am not that good with women. I have no game if I want to talk in slang. And here Stern was like, "Oh yeah, baby, 2, you like women?" And I was like, "Oh my God!" But his treatment of lesbians, and lesbians was dipping your toe in the pool of homosexuality in the mainstream. You got to start out with something that all the idiot, beer drinking, football watching Neanderthals, and I'm not counting everybody who watches football, but you know the stereotype, the guys that beat me up in high school. If you can reach them and go, look, you like this part of homosexuality, right? You're not threatened by this at all. And then the next step in that was simply he would bring homosexual men on the show and just interview them. What's it like to be a homosexual man? And I can remember listening to the radio and just being riveted, because just like hearing about an A-level celebrity receiving treatment that I'll never get, I was listening to a part of the culture that I didn't know about. Now, I was in theater, so most of my friends were gay. but I didn't know the details of, courting rituals and that sort of thing, right? But I'm suddenly talking like it's 1902. But you get the idea that moving through the 90s, Stern always was pushing the envelope, and part of that envelope, that taboo, was homosexuality in all its forms. He would have a dial-a-date where he'd bring a guy up and have 3 gay guys on the phone and set him up on a date. And then find out about, it was like Love Connection with Chuck Woolery, except there were no rules. And for those of us who lived in like I lived in Norwalk, suburb of suburb, this was like uncovering complete alien culture to me. And to Stern's credit, I was never threatened by homosexuality. I'm of the opinion you can do whatever you want. It's your body, whoever you want to be with, that's completely up to you. I've always been really tolerant, but I think that comes from being raised in a tolerant household and taking up drama and just being with different strokes for different folks. You know what I'm saying? I could remember about 1986 or so, my mom discovered we had a cousin who had come to California to be an actor. A really talented, funny guy named Don Paul. So we went and met Don Paul and saw him in a couple of theatrical shows up in Hollywood. And I just remember being in awe of the guy. Because as a kid who was trying to be an actor, I was at a big theater and watching my cousin tear up the stage in Shakespeare and comedies. We went to at least 7 or 8 of his plays. And he was in an episode of the new Twilight Zone called Parent Zoo, where a little girl turns on her parents, and he's one of the parents that's trying to get out of this zoo. It's a great episode. But I was in awe of Don, and when Don came out of the closet to us as gay, it was a big shrug. Okay, so? And I think the further we moved into that culture, the better everybody has become. More tolerant, more accepting, and to try to deny Howard Stern a place in that is ridiculous. This is a guy who championed gay rights back as early as 1991 and 92, and before that, before he was even on in L.A. And the gay community really owes a debt. And no, it's easy to just gloss over and go, the guy's a misogynist, he sexualizes women, he has no respect. That couldn't be further from the truth if you actually stopped, open your ears, and listened to the show. And if a young kid like me, listening at the age of 19, 20, can get that out of it, then it's easy to see how society slowly accepted the things that Stern was saying. And I just remember watching some of his specials, and he would interview women, and just like, everybody's human, everybody's human, and everybody's got wants, needs, loves, hates, and the like. And it's just interesting to think that when the book is written on the sexual revolution of the latter half of the 20th century, that people like Hugh Hefner, whether you hate him or not, hate him or love him, Larry Flint, Howard Stern, Betty Page, Marilyn Monroe, people that paved the way so that you and I can get on the internet and express ourselves any way we wanted. People that took the heat. And boy, did Stern take the heat from every religious parent group in America. And he thumbed his nose at them, and he kept broadcasting. And eventually, gay marriage is legal in every state. I think, right? Every state? And why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't there be equal rights for everybody? What does it matter what goes on in the bedroom? As long as you're happy, as long as you are pursuing happiness in America, and it's not hurting anybody, it shouldn't be anybody's problem. And that was the lesson of the Howard Stern Show. And it's weird to think a show that dirty was able to emerge squeaky clean with that kind of endorsement from me. But that's what I got out of it. I had never even considered lesbianism or what it was like to be a homosexual man until I listened to the Howard Stern show. Because I lived in a little bubble. You know, I got beat up for being a drama kid. I got called derogatory terms, but I didn't know what they meant. And then suddenly, the guy on the radio is preaching, you know? Totally preaching.
The way it's said properly is WNBC. This is key. Come on.
WNBC.
No. You gotta be more like this. Listen up. WNBC. You hear that? Kind of lift. The NBC.
WNBC. WNBC.